The Jacksonville Jaguars have a weapon the NFL can't ignore. Travis Hunter. Offense, defense, big moments. He could change everything in Jacksonville.
Let's talk about Travis Hunter. Where do things stand with him right now, James?
He's in a good spot. He's out on the grass in a limited fashion here, and that'll be the case throughout the remainder of the offseason program. As we get into training camp, he'll be full go. And really looking forward to building off of the momentum that was that game for him individually versus Los Angeles and London. Obviously, being able to breach the 100-yard mark from a receiving standpoint, get in the end zone. At the same time, he turns over to the defensive side of the ball and gets a PBU on a really critical down versus Devontae Adams in coverage. And so being able to build off of really where we were at that point in time and use that momentum to carry into this next season is an exciting piece for us.
Well, then the phrase limited obviously is usually used for a player about physically going to be limited in terms of the number of reps, number of things that he can do based on his health. But when you're talking about a guy who can play both sides of the ball, I'm wondering if limited is also another word that you might use for how you're going to use him, James.
Oh, I like it. You could have asked that a little bit more directly. Like,
all right, let me do it.
Both ways?
Yeah. Oh no, James. No, I admit I didn't want to be. I was testing your anti-fragility. So what do you think? Are we done with the two-way with him or not?
Absolutely not. No, he is set to play both sides of the ball. The piece that I think we can expect to see is actually an uptick in corner usage, right? Last year it was a higher volume, higher percentage of wide receiver usage than it was corner. I think we can expect to see that corner percentile and count go up as we move forward. That's not to say anything impacts his availability and usage on offense. It just means that cornerback usage will increase.
Why do you choose that side of the ball to increase rather than the other?
It's not to say that it won't increase on offensive either, but it was lower on the defensive side this past season. We also have a different defensive cornerback room, and the bodies are different than they were a year ago. Our roster construction is different than it was a year ago, so it's more fitting to slot him in at corner in a different way than it was at this time last year or even as the season progressed.
What does he want to do? He doesn't, obviously we don't get to chat with him too much. Speaking for him, if you don't mind, what does he want to do?
Yeah, he wants to play both ways, and he wants to do exactly what he set out to do when he first started putting that into action all those years ago, and that's his dream, and we'll look to support that in the best way that we can and be able to do what we feel like is in the best interest of winning football games, and that's putting him in the position to do what he does best, and usually that's with the ball in his hand, and it's defending some of the best receivers, and so it's an exciting element and one that we feel like we're going to reap the rewards of and look forward to bringing it all to life.
Good to be back with you guys, and Bucky, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on, guys? I'm really excited. It's my favorite time of year. We're about to have some cleats in the grass. We got rookie minicamp coming up. We got OTAs on the horizon, and it culminates with that last veteran mandatory minicamp where we get to track completions and throws and reps and begin to speculate on who's who and what's what and how it's going to play out and impact the 2026 regular season.
Cleats?
Yeah, it starts that first weekend, and you're right about making sure you get everyone on the same page. And John talked about the 3 different installs that take place. It's the one that you have over the course of the offseason and the OTAs. There's another one that we have once we kind of get into the camp phase, the mini camp phase, where we kind of go through it and rush through it. And then there's training camp where we do it all over again at an accelerated pace to get ready for games. Before you can make the team, you got to know what you're doing. And for the young guys, it's really important that they understand some of the playbook so they can kind of get going in the right direction and then really get used to the pace and the intensity of practice. And I know Liam always talks about the way that they practice. They feel like their superpower is sometimes in their preparation and their process and those things. And so for a bunch of different guys coming from a bunch of different collegiate programs that are used to operating at different levels of intensity, that is the biggest part, learning what we're doing and then doing it at the level and the standard that the Jaguars have set for their young guys.
Bucky, this may seem like a silly question, but That's what I do. So
He's a pro, folks.
is Liam's offense, I'm assuming Trevor and the veterans would never come in here and say they got it, but they're pretty far along understanding. They've got all the basics, and at this point, they're learning nuances. You're taking things out. But for a young player coming in, outside a quarterback, is it a hard offense to learn? Is it relatively user friendly beyond the quarterback, or how would you define it? I mean, there's all the kills everybody associates with the quarterback, but young guys coming in, is it hard to learn?
I think it can be hard to learn because it's such a different approach. I think the first part that makes it a challenge to learn is when you're playing in college, if you're used to looking at the sideline and reading things off the placards and the signals and those things, you're used to not hulling up. And so what it is it's kind of visual process. And so you see the sign that then triggers something in your response, like, hey, I'm about to run this route, or I'm about to do this play, and those things. When you get in the huddle and everyone is surrounded about you and you hear, let's go Trey Wright, red 33, X shell across, Z dig, hammer, keel, run 98 handoff, solid. Well, now you got all these words and there's not a visual trigger. So you're trying to stay focused on, well, what words do I need to hear at my position to tell me exactly what I'm doing? And, there's a keel to it. That means I also have to remember the last part of the play. So when Trevor comes to the line and goes keel, 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 now we're doing the second play on that. What is that play? What do I do on 98 handoff solid?
Timeout. That's what you do, Bucky.
Timeout. Let's go to the sideline and talk this over.
Yeah, that's a lot. And we talked about last year, the discussion we had with Trevor was the wristband. Well, Trevor's one person. Well, now the other 10 guys, they're not operating on the wristband. They have to memorize everything. So there's a lot of rote memorization that goes along where they have to figure out, like, what am I doing? How do I do it? What's the adjustment? And how do I do all of this and play fast? That's the challenge for a young guy thinking about getting into the lineup and making contributions. How do I not only pick it up, but how can I pick it up in a second nature where now I can play at my fastest while doing all the things that are expected of me?
And we lean on Bucky because he knows the X's and O's better than anybody, or at least better than anybody on this show. I've gotten a lot of questions, Bucky, about, hey, if they're going to be in so much 12 and 13, what does that do in terms of personnel at wide receiver? Meaning, hey, you've got Brian Thomas Jr., you got Travis Hunter, you've got guys at that position who you like and who are effective. How much does it cut down their opportunities? My answer has been all along, look, teams play a lot of different personnel packages. They're drafting toward this a little bit so they can be good in this situation. But what percentage of plays is this situation?
Man, I think a lot of it depends on how the defense reacts and responds. And I will say this.
You got to have both tools in the bag. I get.
Yeah, like what you're trying to do now in the offseason training camp, you're trying to figure out how big can we make the toolbox getting into the regular season. And then when you get into the regular season, you don't take the entire toolbox, but you use different tools that you need per game to do it. But if you can have a dynamic 12 and 13 package, you want to have that on the hopper and on the call sheet. And there are a bunch of different ways that you can use that personnel grouping to feature different people. There's a world in which we live where we could have 13 personnel and the only receiver on the field is Brian Thomas Jr. Because what you can do is create advantageous one-on-one situations for him to be able to do the things that he does really well. You also can do different groupings and feature Bretton Strange or Parker or Jacoby Myers. There's so many different things that you want to be able to do. I just know that in this copycat league, when people look at the tape, and everyone has looked heavily at the LA Rams and what they would do last year with Matthew Stafford, I think he threw like 9 or 10 touchdowns and no interceptions out of that grouping. Hey, how can we use this? How can we put this on the field? What problems does it create for the defense? And defensively, you now have to have an answer to all these big body tight ends being on the field.
Yeah, 17 game days. We're actually watching games for 3 hours. Everything else is analysis. So you're on the internet, you're looking at a depth chart. You're trying to figure. So because of that, so often people look at the depth chart and they say, oh, they're starters. And the league, when you're actually watching the games, do you even remember who started? It's, if going to a 12 and 13 personnel package allows you, if you do that 8 plays a game and it gets you 2 first downs, and one of them's when you can't run the clock out against Houston. So I always say the same thing when I talk about Travis Hunter. Impact on offense. Oh, will he get the stats? Will he have 1,500 yards receiving? Well, what if he has 5 big touchdowns?
Yeah, that change momentum in a game.
Moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
That win you games. So that's what the league is now. It's like Bucky said, the club's in the bag. You want to have all those tools you can take to game day. And then if you need that package when you're up by 10 in the fourth quarter against Houston, you need a first down, you can't get one because it's 3rd and 3. Well, now you can go to that. At the end of the season, that package may have played 5% of the plays.
But it mattered in that moment.
It got you those 2 wins.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Well, and it's funny, things that are new often get criticized. So you're changing up a little bit. You did the draft a new way. So people, you can't do that. But the Jaguars fans, really, the superpower for this team right now to me is Liam's vision on offense. And all of a sudden, this franchise is as innovative and as ahead of the curve offensively as any team in the league. I mean, I'm sure they're with a group. But as long as Liam Coen is here, you are going to have a franchise that is not going to be behind in terms of studying what's going on offensively. Well, if you're going to have that guy is occasionally going to say, hey, we've got to figure out, and it wasn't just him. As a collective, they wanted to do this. But you better feed into that because his play calling, his ability on game day to keep you ahead of what the defense is doing is a big reason you were 13 and 4. So if you want that, there are times you've got to draft your personnel to it. So I'm excited to see this.
Yeah, it'll be certainly a fun off season to see it all kind of build up and then take that few weeks off and then get to training camp when the real action begins. And it's time to take your season.
Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.